if you died tomorrow, they will post your job in 48 hours. So don't wear yourself thin for anybody, any employer. Pain isn't weakness. Pain is your body trying to get your attention before it raises its voice, beating all of those dudes in the pull-up contest. I got nothing for it. It made me feel good, but then my damn arms were tired.
Please note that any opinion expressed on this show is my own opinion and does not reflect the opinion of my employer or any organization that I'm associated with or affiliated with for that matter.
Hey everyone, welcome back to A Sip with Samad. And of course, you already know I'm your host, Samad. For those of you who've been rocking with this space for a while, thank you. Thank you so much. We couldn't be here without you. And for those of you who are new here, welcome. We tend to like to slow things down here a bit, and we like to have conversations and open and honest conversations about topics of masculinity, leadership, fatherhood, identity, queerness, all the things. And this season in particular, especially, we want to talk about the things that men don't usually have the language and or the space to talk about. And so today, we're going to talk about health. Right. And I don't mean talking about it in sort of the abstract way, and definitely not in the drink more water type way, but also not in the I'll get to it eventually type way. And so more so, I want to talk about it in the way it shows up in our lives, because if I'm being honest with you, there are parts of my health that I didn't take seriously until my body made it inconvenient for me not to. And so wherever you are, whatever you're doing, take a breath and take a sip.
Hey, kings and queens and everything in between. Welcome to this episode of A Sip with Samad podcast. And I'm your host, Samad. Let's jump in.
So you all know every episode, I like to open the conversation by pouring into it a little bit. I offer a statement, something for us to sit with together. And for this episode, I want you to sit with this. We were taught to push through pain so long that we forgot pain was actually information, y'all. We forgot it was information. So I want to explain why I'm starting here, because a lot of us were raised to believe that pain was something to ignore, something to push past. It was something that you don't talk about unless it was unbearable. We learned early that stopping meant falling behind, that resting meant weakness, that listening to your body was optional. So instead of asking, what is this pain trying to tell me? We ask, how long can I keep going? That's crazy to me. And that question alone has really shaped how a lot of men move through the world. I didn't learn that lesson in a book. I really learned it by ignoring myself. Oh, I'm just tired. Oh, I'm just stressed. It's okay. This is just what comes like with the cost of being driven. There's no rest for the weary. Meanwhile, your body is like waving little flags. You're getting bad sleep. You have short patience. Like you're going off on folks who didn't deserve it, right? Tension, I couldn't even explain. I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about me. Okay. I'm talking about me. And, you know, I started treating all that like background noises because you know, I was raised to believe that stopping meant falling behind, but pain isn't weakness. Pain is your body trying to get your attention before it raises its voice. What's funny is I can remember, like, I ran track in high school and a little bit in college. And so that's just like the nature of the game, like shin splints, run through it. It's like, but my shins are on fire right now. You know, and the crazy part about it is that it made you question when you were actually in pain. Like, I can remember there were times where it's like, I have a knot in the back of my leg, but maybe this is something I'm supposed to push through because they're telling me I'm supposed to. And so that really, like, I want us to stop and sit and think with that, because I don't think that we really sit and think enough about how we're conditioned to push through pain. I don't even know, like, sometimes I question whether or not I can communicate pain accurately. Like, I don't know. Like, what is our threshold? And what we do know is, right, is that when we go to hospitals, especially women, our pain tolerance seems to be looked at as being higher than most. And so part of that is because we were conditioned not to show pain. And the sad part is that when our body starts to show these signs, right, or it starts to communicate with us, we don't even know how to listen. We don't even know what that means. So I don't know. It's just something to noodle on. Like, I do think that there's a conditioning factor for people, a conditioning factor for Black people, especially slavery, but also a condition for just men, a conditioning for men. And so there's also this notion, right, pushing to prove, specifically for queer people, right? Like, the part that I don't think we talk about enough is, like, when you grow up learning how to push, you don't always learn how to pause. I spent a lot of my life trying to prove I could handle things, being competent, being reliable, being the one who could take more, pause. And when you add the queer layer to that, it gets real specific. I can remember even being in gym class in high school and trying to outdo the straight dudes, not because I loved gym, even though it was my social hour in high school, right? Not because I was trying to be an athlete, even though I was, but because I felt like I had something to prove. Like, there was this, like, unspoken thing that said if you were gay, you had to be weak. Like, there was this notion that if you were gay, you were weak. So I pushed harder. Like, I ran faster. I wanted to be the best. I overexerted myself because I needed them to know in that particular moment. And maybe I needed me to know too, that I wasn't less than. Like, that skill served me for a very long time until it didn't, because your body does not care how impressive your resume is. It does not care about the dudes you outperformed. It doesn't care about how accomplished you are. It only cares about what it's carrying. And nobody ever takes a step back to talk about that. How exhausting that constant need to prove yourself can become. That constant push, that constant pressure, the constant voice that just keeps saying, keep going, even when you're tired, even when you need to rest. Like, that's universal. I made it personal, right? I just made it personal by sharing my own experience, but it's true. A lot of us are, like, trying to perform, and we're working ourselves thin for what? Because at the end of the day, I got no award for beating all of those dudes in the pull-up contest. I got nothing for it. It made me feel good, but then my damn arms were tired for a damn week, sitting there walking looking like a damn kangaroo. For what? Who won? Who won? At any rate, I digress. The last point that I want to make in all this, though, is that I do think it's this notion of exhaustion as inheritance. Like, I look at my family and I have relatives who don't have the luxury to stop. Like, I see people running themselves into the ground, and it's not because they want to, it's because they have to. Like, I watched my grandmother work the graveyard shift. I watched my mother do whatever she had to do by any means necessary. Like, the people around me were always working. The people around me were always surviving, sometimes thriving, sometimes just getting through. And that became my blueprint for strength. And your body will start making things up, like tingling in your toes and random aches and stuff you tell yourself as is normal. Hey, sweetheart, everybody does not lose feeling in their toes, by the way. No, honey, that has a name. It's called neuropathy. And so we do all this, and I go back to, we work ourselves in the ground. I can remember when I was in grad school, and I was a lowly grad student. And, I shout out to the elders, because Dr. Bell Whelan, who was the former president of the Southern accreditation body for all my geeks and education nerds out there, Black woman, AKA, by the way. And Belle Whelan, I was a grad student, and she took me out to dinner. And I felt, now that I look at this, it was such a horrible, it wasn't a horrible experience, but I felt like I could have looked better, because I was there to really talk and pick her brain. But clearly she felt like I was a hungry grad student, which I was, because I sat there and ordered, and I ate, and she watched me eat, and I felt so bad. But at any rate, I go back to the conversation. In that conversation, I was working, because in grad school, I also worked a full-time job. And I said to her that I had some hesitations about leaving, because I had built out all this work at the organization in this particular office. And her exact words to me were, "Samad, if you died tomorrow, they will post your job in 48 hours. So don't wear yourself thin for anybody, any employer." And so that for me gave me a drive to put myself in a position where I didn't have to rely on that. And once again, I go back to the fact that everybody doesn't have that luxury. However, I do want to acknowledge that for many, it is driving them into the ground. And so I don't have a solution for how do we solve for it, right? But I do think that we should at least call it out, because I think that that's the first step in solving for the problem. Last thing I would say is, what goes unprocessed leaks, right? And so here's what took me longer to understand, more so than most, is that health isn't just physical. It's emotional. Health is mental. It's spiritual. There were moments when I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was just a little off. Like, I would be short with people. I would be less patient, and not necessarily feeling like myself. And I realized I hadn't processed anything. I just kept moving. And so you can be productive, and you can still be carrying a lot, and your body will still hold what your mouth never learned how to say. So before we move forward, I just want to say, I want to pause for a second, because if you didn't hear anything else I said today, I want you to hear these three things. The first is, pain is not weakness. Pain is information. Your body is not betraying you, beloved. It's trying to communicate with you. The second thing is that a lot of us didn't confuse exhaustion with strength on our own. We were taught that. And I think that it's going to be important for us to unlearn it. But unlearning it, especially for men who learn how to survive by pushing, is real work. But you have to acknowledge it first. And the third thing is that you cannot outwork what you haven't processed. If you don't make peace and make space for it, your body will. So if anything from this conversation stays with you, let it be that. Now, with all that on the table, I want to move us into a space that's a little bit more personal, and that's the From Where I Sit segment. These questions are from the producers. They gather them near and far and wherever you are. I don't get a chance to see these questions. They're not rehearsed. And so I just try to answer directly and answer promptly as the producers continue to remind me. And so without further ado, I'd like to jump in. Also, these questions should be related to the topic at hand. Let's go. All right. First question. What health issue scares you the most that you've never said out loud? To be honest with you, the health issue that probably scares me the most, that I think there are probably two. One is like a silent killer of some sort, like an aneurysm. And so how do you know if you're healthy and that everything, like nothing like that could happen? Seems very freakish, right? But it's definitely a health issue that scares me because I would like to know, how do you know the signs and how do you protect yourself from something like that happening? I think another thing is the C word, cancer. Cancer scares me because that's also something that you have no control over. Maybe it's a diet, maybe there are things you can do to be preventative and to lower your risk. But those are things that sort of scare me. I don't know if I've ever said it out loud. But yeah, those are the two probably things that scare me the most. The second question, what are you most afraid of? Aging, losing your strength, sex drive, independence, or something else? What am I afraid of losing most? I would say independence. I don't want to be a burden on anyone. I think, especially as you get older, I can remember my grandmother saying that to me, like, as you get older, that's one of the things that you gain independence, and you definitely don't want that taken away from you. And so I want to drive as long as I can drive. I want to do as long as I can do, and not be a burden on anyone. And so that's kind of more so me, but aging, I'm fine with. I don't like the aches and pains that come with aging. Like, nobody told me, like, you got to stretch your damn ankles before you get out of the bed. But that's not what the question was. It was, what am I most afraid of? And I think definitely losing my independence would be something that I'm probably most afraid of. The next question. So as a queer man, how do you view your health possibly different than your straight counterparts? That's a good question. I do think that the doctor's visits are definitely different. And I know this from my own personal experience. I've gone to a doctor's office. This actually happened in DC when I went to a doctor's office, and when they didn't know that I was queer, the way that they handled me was different. But when they found out that I was queer, the doctor was asking, when was the last time you had gay sex? Like, oh, okay. All right. I don't know why I always make people's voices seem so like creepy. Like, I don't know. It just, that's how I felt when she asked the question. But, and mind you, it was a woman. But no, I do think that because of just what we see, because of, I guess, the risk that has been shared with being queer, particularly around things like HIV and AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases for that matter. I do go to the doctor regularly. I get checked up regularly. And so I do know a lot of my straight counterparts, they go now. They're older, so they go. But I've been going to the doctor more just as a result. And that's something that I can remember being ingrained in me in high school, in particular, as a teen, but also as a teen who was like queer. Next question. What are some of the attributes of your self-care routine, and why are those important to you? What are some of the attributes of myself? Well, I don't necessarily have like a skincare routine or anything like that. I just like to go to the spa. I like to relax. I'm trying to teach myself how to do that. I think that's something that you have to learn. So I think self-care is something you have to teach yourself to do. It's not something that is just ingrained in you. And so I'm learning every day on how to take care of myself. And the things that I do are like going for a walk on a trail in the woods by myself and listening to an audiobook, or going to the spa. And going to the spa is hard for me because I have to sit still and I have to think about nothing. And usually I'm thinking about everything, right? And so I say all that to say probably the spa and going for long walks by myself. I do want to go find some waterfalls. So apparently Georgia has a lot of natural waterfalls. And so that's been on my bucket list of things to do. But now that we have two kids, I don't know when I'm going to find the time to do it. But that I would like to add that to my self-care routine. I don't really have like any beauty care routine things because I mean, I'm old school, put a little Vaseline on you and call it a day. But yeah, that's like, yeah. All right. Next question. I think this is the last one, hopefully. What's a moment when you had to push through the pain and what was the result? I don't know. What was a moment I had to push through the pain? I think, honestly, every day you get older, you pushing through the damn pain. I said earlier, I mean, my neck hurts, my back hurts. And this is not because I'm just, I'm healthy, I think. But I do know. I do, in all seriousness, I do think if I had to personalize this and get a little deep, I do think that there are moments, particularly at work, where I do find myself having to push through the pain. But I also think I find comfort in creativity. I find comfort in letting my mind go into spaces and being free. Like pain for me is sort of, that's how I deal with the pain. So that's my solution. But I think, it's less about what moments I had to do, because I can't necessarily pinpoint a moment, but I can tell you what I do to mitigate the pain. So I can tell you what my ibuprofen for the pain is. And that is giving myself time to process and giving myself space to rest, and finding those things that give me energy. Because like I said, sometimes pain is not physical. Sometimes pain is exhaustion because it's mental. I didn't even plan that. See, I told you these questions are not planned. But as always, I do not have a perfect ending for this. But that might have been it. But what I do want you to leave with is that health isn't about perfection. It's about paying attention and listening sooner instead of later, and taking yourself seriously before your body forces you to. And so if this conversation stayed with you, I ask you to share it with someone who might need permission to slow down and take a break. And so please continue to like, share, subscribe, and take a sip. And until next time, I'm out.